The events depicted in this video are based on real incidents. The script has been created for educational and entertainment purposes only. The safety of passengers and crew members is of the utmost importance.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Air Crash Chronicles, the channel where we dive deep into the investigations of tragic air crashes. In today's episode, we explore the devastating events surrounding American Airlines Flight 587. Join us as we uncover the factors that led to the loss of this Airbus A300 and the lives of 265 people. Let's get started. American Airlines Flight 587 was a scheduled passenger flight from John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City to Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. On November 12, 2001, the Airbus A300-600 aircraft operating the flight crashed into the Bell Harbor neighborhood in Queens, New York, shortly after takeoff. The crash was caused by the separation of the vertical stabilizer from the aircraft during flight, resulting in the loss of control. All 260 people on board the aircraft, including passengers and crew, were killed, as well as 5 people on the ground who were struck by debris.
The Airbus A300 is a significant aircraft in aviation history, as it was the first ever commercial aircraft produced by Airbus. Developed and manufactured from 1971 to 2007, it is also the world's first twin-engine, wide-body airliner with a double-aisle configuration. The idea for the A300 came about in September 1967 when aircraft manufacturers in the UK, France, and West Germany signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on a large airliner project. However, the British eventually withdrew from the project, and on May 29, 1969, West Germany and France reached a firm agreement. To develop and produce the aircraft, Airbus Industry, a pan-European collaborative aerospace manufacturer, was established on December 18, 1970. The A300 prototype made its maiden flight on October 28, 1972. It had the distinction of being the first twin-engine wide-body airliner, capable of seating 247 passengers in 2 classes. The aircraft boasted a range of 5,375 to 7,500 kilometers, 2,900 to 4,050 mi, 3,340 to 4,660 miles. Initially, the A300 was powered by General Electric CF650 or Pratt & Ampere Whitney JT9D turbofan engines and featured a 3-crew flight deck. An upgraded version, known as the A300-600, was introduced later. It featured a 2-crew cockpit and was equipped with updated CF680C2 or PW4000 engines.
After a thorough investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, concluded that the probable cause of the accident was the stress overload on the aircraft's vertical stabilizer due to the first officer's unnecessary and excessive rudder inputs. The NTSB also expressed concerns about the design of the Airbus A300's rudder system, as similar incidents had occurred in the past. As a result of the crash, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, recommended changes to pilot training programs, focusing on rudder control and recovery techniques. The accident brought attention to the issue of pilot-induced oscillation and led to modifications in aircraft designs and improvements in training procedures to prevent similar accidents in the future. Yes, American Airlines Flight 587 was operated by an Airbus A300B-4605R aircraft. This particular aircraft, with registration N14053, was delivered to American Airlines in July 1988. It was the first R-model A300-600 built and had its first flight in December 1987. The aircraft had a 2-class seating configuration, with 16 business class seats and 235 economy class seats, accommodating a total of 251 passengers. The Airbus A300B-4605R was equipped with two General Electric CF680C2 A5 engines, which were responsible for powering the aircraft. On board the flight were 9 flight crew members, including 42-year-old Captain Edward States, who was the pilot monitoring and responsible for radio communications, and 34-year-old First Officer Sten Molen, who was the pilot flying the aircraft. Additionally, there were 251 passengers on board who were traveling to Santo Domingo. After receiving clearance for takeoff behind a Japan Airlines Boeing 747-400 American Airlines. Flight 587 began its takeoff roll on runway 31L at John F. Kennedy International Airport. The tower controller cautioned Flight 587 regarding potential wake turbulence from the preceding Boeing 747. The A300 took off at 9 hours 14 minutes and 29 seconds AM EST, about a minute and 40 seconds after the JAL flight. Upon reaching an altitude of 500 feet, the aircraft initiated a climbing left turn to a heading of 220 degrees. At 9 hours 15 minutes and 0 seconds, the captain made initial contact with the departure controller, relaying their altitude of 1,300 feet and their intended climb to 5,000 feet. The controller instructed the aircraft to climb to and maintain 13,000 feet. However, at 9 hours 15 minutes and 36 seconds, the A300 encountered wake turbulence from the JAL flight in front of it. As a new wave of turbulence hit, the first officer, Sten Molen, began making rapid inputs to the rudder, alternately moving it from right to left. This led to a side-slip effect. At 9 hours 15 minutes and 58 seconds, the composite lugs attaching the vertical stabilizer to the aircraft failed under the lateral force, causing the stabilizer to separate and fall into Jamaica Bay, approximately 1 mile north of the main wreckage site. Following the loss of the stabilizer, the aircraft pitched downwards, and the pilots struggled to regain control. It entered a flat spin, and the aerodynamic forces sheared off both engines, causing them to fall several blocks away from the main wreckage site. The loss of the engines resulted in a loss of power to the flight data recorder, FDR, at 9 hours 16 minutes and 1 second. The cockpit voice recorder, CVR, cut off at 9:16, 14.8 upon impact with the ground. At 9 hours 16 minutes and 4 seconds, the stall warning sounded on the CVR. The last recorded words captured on the CVR were First Officer Molen saying, "What the hell are we into? We're stuck in it." At 9 hours 16 minutes and 7 seconds, with Captain Edward States replying, "Get out of it, get out of it." The aircraft ultimately crashed into a residential area at Newport Avenue and Beach, 131st Street, causing significant damage to multiple properties.
The NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, conducted an extensive investigation following the crash of American Airlines Flight 587. Soon after the accident, the NTSB began their investigation, which lasted for 3 months. During this time, they conducted 349 interviews and collected and reconstructed pieces of the aircraft. The investigation determined that the aircraft flew into the wake turbulence created by the preceding Japan Airlines Boeing 747-400. In response to the turbulence, the first officer made aggressive and unnecessary rudder inputs in an attempt to stabilize the aircraft. The repetitive movement of the rudder subjected the aircraft's vertical stabilizer to excessive stress, ultimately causing it to break off entirely. This loss of the vertical stabilizer led to the aircraft losing control and crashing. The NTSB concluded that if the first officer had stopped making additional rudder inputs, the aircraft would have stabilized. The investigation also identified contributing factors, including the characteristics of the Airbus A300-600's sensitive rudder system design and elements of the American Airlines Advanced Aircraft Maneuvering Training Program. Investigators also examined the manner in which the vertical stabilizer separated from the aircraft. The vertical stabilizer was connected to the fuselage through attachment lugs, with composite lugs and bolts being a part of the structure. Although the bolts and aluminum lugs remained intact, the composite lugs failed. This prompted concern about the strength of composite materials used in other areas of the aircraft. However, tests conducted on the accident aircraft's vertical stabilizers, as well as another similar aircraft, determined that the strength of the composite material was not compromised. The NTSB concluded that the material failed because it had been stressed beyond its design limit. Numerous witnesses observed the crash, with around half of them reporting seeing a fire or explosion before the plane hit the ground. Some witnesses mistakenly identified the detachment of the vertical stabilizer as a wing detachment. Following the crash, Floyd Bennett Field's hangars were utilized as a temporary morgue for the identification of the crash victims. Tragically, all 260 people aboard American Airlines Flight 587 lost their lives in the crash. This included passengers and crew members. Additionally, 5 bystanders on the ground were also killed, bringing the total number of fatalities to 265. The crash had a profound impact on the families and loved ones of those on board. One particularly poignant story among the victims was that of Hilda Yolanda Mayol. She had previously survived the September 11th attacks after escaping from the North Tower of the World Trade Center. But unfortunately, she did not survive the crash of Flight 587. In response to the tragedy, airport officials at Las Americas International Airport established a private area for those who had come to the airport to meet the passengers, some of whom were unaware of the plane crash. At John F. Kennedy International Airport, authorities utilized the JFK Ramada Plaza to accommodate relatives and friends of the crash victims. The Family Crisis Center was later relocated to the Havett Center in Manhattan to provide support and assistance to those affected by the incident. A memorial was erected in Rockaway Park, which is situated adjacent to Bell Harbor, to commemorate the 265 victims of the Flight 587 crash. The memorial is located near the Rockaway Beach and Boardwalk at the southern end of Beach 116th Street, a prominent commercial street in the area. The dedication of the memorial took place on November 12, 2006, marking the 5th anniversary of the accident. The ceremony was attended by then-Mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg. Every year on November 12th, an annual ceremony is held at the memorial to commemorate the tragedy. During the ceremony, the names of all those killed on board the aircraft and on the ground are read aloud, followed by a formal moment of silence observed at 9:16 a.m., which is the estimated time of the crash. The memorial wall, designed by Dominican artist Freddy Rodriguez and Situ Studio, features windows and a doorway that face towards the nearby Atlantic Ocean and are angled towards the Dominican Republic. It is adorned with the names of the victims. As we conclude our investigation into the crash of American Airlines Flight 587, we are reminded of the profound impact these tragedies have on the aviation community and the families affected. The loss of 260 passengers and crew members, along with 5 innocent bystanders on the ground, has highlighted the importance of understanding the root causes of accidents. Join us next time as we continue our exploration of aviation disasters, aiming to enhance safety in the skies. Don't forget to subscribe to Air Crash Chronicles for more in-depth investigations and analysis.